forum to order for the, do we have to say what warrant number this is? No.
Town meeting.
For town meeting, which will be May 4th at 7 o'clock at Hopkins Academy. This is a preview of that event.
Hi, Amy.
The ground rules, we're going to discuss those,
Probably should.
all right?
The ground rules for
This.
town meeting.
The town
The
meeting,
town meeting?
yes.
That's usually the moderator who does the ground rules.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna talk, you're talking about the ground rules for tonight, which means that, which
It's
this
in
is-
That's the second slide.
It's in the slides.
It's in the
Okay.
slides, okay?
Point of order question?
Yes.
Is the town moderator coming to this?
No,
No. He's not.
Not
nor
tonight.
does he typically.
We usually meet with him about a half an hour prior to the town meeting.
Kirk and I have been speaking.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
fully
Yeah,
aware
he's
of this,
prepared.
the motions. Yeah.
Could I ask what your concern is?
Well, this is the forum about the town meeting.
Could you come up so people can hear you, please? Introduce yourself and.
Greg Kwolek. The town moderator plays a very important role in running the town meeting. And as far as establishing the ground rules, it's up to him, not the select board, to establish the ground rules, because he is the moderator. So if there are any opportunities at this forum to switch things around, ask questions about order of anything, the town moderator should be present to at least participate and understand, and not just say, hey, it's a half an hour before the town meeting, what are we going to do now? I think that's a little late.
Yep. And I think just to reiterate what the town administrator said, Mr. Kwolek, is that she has been in direct contact with the town moderator, and he's been the moderator previously, so we have a fair amount of experience with him. And the ground rules for the forum were agreed upon, quite frankly, several years ago. I don't think that there's anything that's been changed.
And
So-
I believe they do go by Robert's rules also. That's usually the
Town meeting time.
Town meeting time.
Town
Yep.
meeting time.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
All right, we'll get started. I think she'll be walking in shortly.
Alex, can you pull that down so it's not blocking the screen?
Pull what down?
His little tab.
Oh.
So Jen, I just realized I need to get that on my computer. Can you email it to me? Or I can get on the Zoom. Is that what's faster?
You know what? Why
Want the
don't
hard
you and I
copy?
just switch seats for the presentation?
I can give you my computer, it's on it.
No, I got my computer. I can just either Zoom in or,
And that way you can actually see it.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Change the camera for, is that gonna change things for you?
Reminds me when I bought my house.
I can just leave it, it's okay.
Hello, Jennifer.
Carolyn's so cool, she gets her own camera.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the next slide.
Give me just one
Let's
second.
hope I can see him from here. That's gonna be the next problem. You want the hard copy? Okay, that's good. All right, so the intent of the forum is to provide voters with an overview and context for the annual town meeting. It's to improve the voters' understanding of individual warrant articles, and it offers voters an opportunity to ask questions. The forum is not intended to take any vote, favorable or unfavorable, other than the select board's recommendation. It's not intended to provide any group or individual the opportunity to advocate for a particular article or to speak against an article. The first article is, does not require a vote. It's just an announcement of the posting of the annual town election on May 16th. So that's the first thing you'll see on the warrant.
So the articles on the consent agenda are considered routine and they're acted on as one single motion. I am tonight going to go over each consent article, but at town meeting, it is voted as one article, as one vote. And the items may be removed from the consent agenda by the moderator in order to address any voter concerns or questions. So the second article that is a consent agenda. It's an order for the towns. It's a standard article that allows the town to accept grants and gifts throughout the fiscal year so that a town meeting does not have to be called when we receive grants and gifts. This is purely administrative. Article 3 is Chapter 90. This is another standard article that is required by the state that allows the town to receive and expend Chapter 90 funds, which are used to repair and maintain roads and bridges. Article 4 is also regarding, it's a standard administrative. This allows the treasurer to borrow for a one-year period in the event that the town experiences cash flow problems. We have never had to do this, right, Linda? We've never had, so, but it is useful. It's a useful tool to have if we need it, so we don't have to call a town meeting. Number 5 is, this has been on the warrant for a few years. It's for the water treatment plant filtration membrane. It's a reserve. This article helps protect the town's investment in the water treatment plant. This article transfers money into a targeted fund specifically for the purpose of replacing the filtration units at the end of their useful life. Each unit is expected to last at least 10 years, and this article is funded through water reserves and has no impact on taxation.
Can I just interject something
You can.
here? If we could maybe have that in the back of our mind that people might ask, when was the last time that we replaced them?
We can ask, that's a good question. Yep, I'll have,
Because I'm sure somebody might ask that.
Yep.
Certainly the cost has gone up
they're very, very
more
expensive.
so than we had anticipated.
Do we do them all at once or do we have them on a rotating?
It's not all at once rotating. Thanks, Joyce. Okay, this is actually the first time this has been on the annual town meeting warrant, and this is advised by town council to be included on every town meeting, annual town meeting warrant, to be in compliant with Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, Section 12B, to authorize the town administrator or the select board to solicit awards and contracts for terms exceeding 3 years if it is in the best interest of the town. Again, this is administrative purposes. So prior year invoices, these are 4 invoices that came in after the fiscal year closed, which is June 30th, 2023. By law, we cannot pay invoices on a project that was completed on the fiscal year before. So these came in July. So town meeting is the only way you can authorize to pay these. These are just prior year invoices. So now we're going to go into the omnibus budget. So I'm going to give a highlight where some of the increases have come from. And then Amy Fiden is here on behalf of the Finance Committee, and she will also provide some input as well. But so the focus on the town administrator's budget was this and also had support from the Finance Committee. Continues to be in the need for more realistic staffing levels, seeing the growing demands on the Hadley's workforce. So just over 50% of the increases were related to staffing. Some of these changes will generate more revenue, such as adding additional part-time building inspector and increasing the health inspector position to a full-time, which would the health inspector would be taking on a director's role. So we'd be working full-time. The 18 hours he works is just not enough to complete all of those inspections. It's also imperative that we maintain all our buildings. That has been one of the biggest concerns since I've been here, is the ability to maintain our buildings. And one of those is to have a more robust building maintenance department. So we would, this request is to add a full-time custodian who also is in charge of repairing and maintaining the buildings. So that is a full-time position in addition to, right now, we outsource for a very minimal amount of custodian for all of the buildings. So this is very important and very needed. This will help us definitely put a proactive direction instead of neglecting repairs that are costly and inefficient. We're also, there's a request to create a land use position to assist conservation, planning, zoning, Board of Appeals, and the Community Preservation Committee with administrative and technical assistance. The majority of this funding has come from those departments that had money set aside for admin costs. There's also a 2.5 cost of living increase for non-union employees. Other personal changes this fiscal year that happened in this fiscal year will impact next year and years to follow. Our union and contractual obligatory increases that we negotiate and obligated to pay those. So there are some for the present year, and then we just negotiated several unions. So it'll be the next 2 years as well as this year. The select board also recognized the need to provide more assistance to the town administrator and began the process of separating the financial management role of the town administrator's primary duties. The treasurer took on the responsibilities of finance manager to assist in operational and capital budget planning. So we're a few months into that. So that will impact next year's budget as well. The collector as well, with her extensive experience in municipal insurance, took on additional responsibilities as risk manager for the town, which is does another position that provides a cost savings with her knowledge of insurance. So the other increases are definitely for fuel and utilities. And we did do modest increases because I think it's still unpredictable of how much of an increase it's going to be for the fuel and the utilities. So we're going to keep an eye on that, but the finance committee is well aware of it, as well as the finance team that worked on it in-house. So we'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the year. So I am going to go right into water and sewer, and then I'll tee it up for you. The sewer, water, and Hadley Enterprise Fund budgets are similar to the omnibus budget in the sense that union contract increases and fuel and utilities have impacted the sewer and water budgets. There's no impact on taxation for our enterprise funds. And so I'm just going to ask Amy Fiden, you have some comments from the finance committee as well. So can you come on up here?
You have those numbers.
I'm not controlling it, actually.
Oh, that's all Jennifer. Okay, so I was going to start off by just going over the balances that we have. So the free cash is about 1.4 million. I'll talk about that in another moment. The sewer enterprise fund cash reserves are about 255,000. Water enterprise reserves is 1.1 million. We have Hadley media reserves at 165,000. Stabilization is almost 2 million. We have CPA at about 2 million. TDR is about 75,000. Capital is 1,942. Water stabilization is 182,000. And sewer impact fund is 148,000. So now let me talk about free cash a little bit. So the free cash, what we have done in the past is basically we've done a lot of using anticipated free cash. That's when I first started. We used to do that all the time, anticipated free cash. The good news is now we've been doing certified free cash. So that is great news. The certified free cash that we were talking about is the 1.4 million. How we really come up with those numbers is about 800,000 was from COVID. When COVID hit, we were really low on our meals and rooms tax. So those went way high when we got back on track. So that was a big increase for us, about the 800,000. 200,000 was about what we had left over from the year prior, and 400,000 was about what we had as a typical free cash. So that's where we come up with about 1.4 million. After town meeting, we're thinking it's going to be, we had the 1.4, we are looking at using 860,000 in free cash for the general budget. We are thinking about, and that was Article 8. We're looking at Article 10 down the road, about 400,000 for the ambulance. Article 19, we're talking about 50,000 for capital. And Article 20 was about 10,000 for employee fund. So next year, we're thinking we would have about 178,000 to roll over. That's the guess. So as far as the budget goes, we have our FY 24, after reviewing the budget with the all the departments, looking at the town administrator's changes, they did a lot of work with the treasurer, and they had done a lot of changes before we even started to meet. After that was all said and done, our budget is $20,461,072. I think. Yes, that is correct. And then where we focused on the biggest changes and what our thoughts were from the finance committee, we wanted to show the direction of free cash to go down. We wanted to show less dependency on it year after year. Last year, between ARPA money and free cash, it was 875,000 in which we used for last year. This year, we're looking about 860. So we are trying to do the right track and go down on dependent on free cash. As far as OPEB goes, that's another one we seem to touch a lot. But we did think it was important that we keep going in the right direction. Last year, we did funded OPEB 170,000. So this year we requested to fund 180,000, just so that we're going in the right direction. We still do a lot of borrowing. It's important that we keep that triple bond rating. So those are our two focuses on that. Should I go into Article 9?
Amy, can I just suggest for the viewing audience, OPEB?
Yes, I was going to suggest that.
So other post-employment benefits, it's a liability.
Yes, thank you, Molly. Yeah, if you want to ask me to explain it, that's a whole nother story on how OPEB works.
We got Linda here.
Okay. As far as Article 9 goes, that was the reserved, or I'm sorry, that is the enterprise funds. We have, let's see, we have the sewer, the water, sewer's budget was 940,000. Water's budget was 1.3 million. And we have the Hadley Media at 78,000. Now we realize in those three areas, reserves, the reserves have been depleting a little bit. We did recognize that there are, we have put in place, or you all have put in place, increases on those rates for the water and sewer. And we are actively looking at how to work with Hadley Media in the future, because we do realize that is something that we will need to look at a little bit further and how to help that out, because we have been depleting all the reserves in the enterprise funds. But we are still looking good this year. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Questions?
Yeah, any questions up to this point?
Question? Great.
Anybody on Zoom?
I can't see them. Liz, can you see anybody's eyes? Good, excuse me.
Thank you.
Article 10?
All right. This article presents a startup budget for the town's first basic level ambulance service. And Molly Keegan is going to take this. And then we have Chief Spanknable here if there's any questions or wants to add anything.
Okay, so with this article, we're actually doing something a little bit different than we've made an ask of town meeting in the past. So we thought it was important to give you a little bit of context, a little bit of history, so that you can get your head wrapped around what we're asking for here. So the history here is that for those of you who've lived in town for quite a while, you know that originally for many decades, we utilized the town of Amherst to provide us with ambulance coverage. Several years ago, we wound up entering into a contract with Action EMS to provide ambulance coverage for a variety of reasons. So we've been leaning on them to provide ALS, which is advanced life support coverage, along with basic life support or BLS coverage. What we've found over time is that with the call volume kind of continuing to increase and staying high, and now that we have a fair amount of data under our belt, we've realized that there are several calls that wind up being what we refer to as lost calls. And what that means is that Action's busy, another call comes in, and then we're needing to call mutual aid. That call volume is sufficient enough that we believe it's an actual revenue opportunity for the town. We embarked on a multi-year strategy with the long-term intent many years ago of eventually bringing the ambulance service fully in-house. We just haven't had the opportunity with budgets and COVID and the like to really move in that direction without creating issues with the rest of the budget, right? You always have to borrow from somebody to provide funds to someone else. So this year, what we think is that we have a very unique opportunity. Given the level of free cash that Amy just explained, which is pretty significant relative to other years, we believe that now is the time to effectively use some of that free cash as seed money. You need to make the investment to get the program going, right? With the intent that once this program gets going over time, we'll be able to start bringing in revenue. The longer it goes on, and eventually with us, moving over a multi-year period to bringing in the advanced life support as well, we'll be able to garner the revenues that are currently being enjoyed by the third-party provider. So this is a classic case of at some point you've got to jump in. And this is the first time that we've ever believed that we had the money to do so. It's a prudent time to do it. And the important thing to know is that this is an enhancement to the ambulance coverage we currently have. So this does not in any way degrade the level of ambulance coverage we've all come to enjoy. We will continue to work with Action Ambulance to keep that ALS coverage in-house. But this will give the chief the opportunity to start an additional BLS service. And in so doing, it's actually bringing another ambulance to our region. And if you're paying any attention, you know that this is a real problem area right now. And what we see happening is that there are significant staffing shortages in this field. And this is a way for the town of Hadley to move closer to being more in control of our own destiny. So I think that's basically what I had to say about that.
But you could add in here that the town did make a purchase of the ambulance that we have just to start this.
Right. If for those of you who
The
are
town
present
meeting.
a year ago at town meeting, that was when we, for $20,000, entered into an agreement with the city of Northampton. Thank you, city of Northampton, and all of the work that our fire department did to get that bus up and running. So we're at a point where we'll be able to bring that online. And I guess with that, I mean, Mike.
I wonder if it might, for people who haven't paid attention to the ambulance service, talk about when we first started with Action and how we had a fee that we paid them and there was a relationship that they were going to reimburse accordingly, and how positive that worked out for us.
Yeah, the transition from Amherst to Action Ambulance was actually pretty seamless. It's actually, thinking back to it, that 1 month transition. Yeah, it was great. Again, in large part to the hard work of our own fire department to get that transition up and running. We were at a point with the town of Amherst where the cost was going up significantly, and they had put a contract in front of us with a much higher price tag than what Action came in with. Action entered into a contract whereby there was effectively a revenue sharing arrangement. So if their call volume was at a certain level, and we exceeded that level, then some of that revenue has come back to the town of Hadley. Sure.
That's
And
why
the,
you're
re-
here.
and the
so.
response,
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
response time that we were getting from Amherst was getting longer because of their staffing problems also.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that was part of our,
The Amherst contract was not going to provide an ambulance in our station. So Action EMS, we have an ambulance fully under the control of the fire chief in our station. So we cut our average response times of 8 to 15 minutes to 4 to 6 minutes. So, and that's the reason why this is so critical as well. We've had between 100 to 150 on average missed second calls. So our primary Action ambulance is out on a call. We're averaging around 100 to 150 where we have to call mutually partner. So again, we're getting back into that delayed response time. Perfect example, this past week, and I just presented to the seniors for their spaghetti supper was, we had a person go down at the mall. Our Action ambulance service was out on a call. Our firefighters, if, when we get this into position, that would be responding. Our pumper, our engine actually responded, and our firefighters were actually able to provide CPR and defibrillation and brought the person back. So again, that ambulance would have been transporting and we would have been intercepting with Northampton. So again, it's for us. I understand the revenue is important as well, but for us, it's patient care and it's response time, that golden hour, and it's getting patients to the hospital as quick as possible. So we are looking at, there was some questions about the budget, and this is not bringing 2 additional firefighters in under the ambulance. It's bringing in 2 additional firefighters, both shared between fire and EMS.
And Mike, even with that, you've applied for a safer grant.
For 3
Which-
additional firefighters, yes.
And that's what we would need to go to 24/7 coverage.
We're trying to do a model where we'll be able to start some 24-hour coverage, but we won't have that 4th, what we call a tour. We don't have quite enough to do every day of the week. So we're trying to figure out how we can put together something with our call force or with some per diem help to try and get that overnight coverage. Again, between 70 and 80% of our calls are during the daytimes hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But we do still have some pretty serious calls overnight. And we'll be presenting at the town meeting. We'll show you some reasons why we just think it's so critical that we have this 24-hour coverage where lives really depend on it. So I think we're
And you're gonna
really
bring
moving forward.
your new machine.
That will be parked at town meeting. Again, our firefighters did all the work on that. And none of it was asked for putting that together we didn't ask for any additional money. We crunched everything this year in our budget to make sure that we have that ambulance ready to go for July 1st. We're starting the training process right now. Driver training, obviously it's a bigger rig. And our folks, we're starting our in-house classes with all of our EMTs. I think we have 13 or 17 EMT basics right now on the department. And we've had just a massive response from our neighbors who really want to come in and join our team as well. So I think we're definitely not going to have a hard time finding folks that are going to want to ride on that. We're also looking at possibly partnering up with Hadley at Elaine for some transfers, which is a pretty good source of revenue, non-emergent transfers. So they would be scheduled transports, to a hospital or from a hospital. So we're working on that as well.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? The 150 missed second calls, I think you call them, is that like over the span of a year? or-
Yeah. So that was over, yes, for the span of a year. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many, the other statistic that we've been seeing is the number of multiple calls happening at the same time. So last year we had 300 calls where there were 2 different calls happening at the same time. So our crews had to split. And that's where you're seeing some of those where we'll have 3 ambulances in town at the same time, motor vehicle accidents, things like that.
Any questions on Zoom?
Yep.
perfect.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mike.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
Okay,
Go home and
thanks,
rest.
Chief. Right. All right, Article 11 is revolving funds or revolving accounts. This article sets the maximum amount to be spent from these departmental revolving funds established by town bylaws for FY 24 in connection with the operation of programs and activities that generate fees, charges, or other receipts to support all or some of the expenses from these.
There is no impact on taxation. And also in this article, we are closing 3 inactive revolving funds and we'll be returning $39,472.61 to the general fund. Any questions there? All right, Mary. Mary, from the Community Preservation Committee is going to deal with Article 12 through Article 18. And I know she has some people who will address some of those.
I don't actually have the articles written in front of me. All right. Thank you. That'll be easier. Article 12, the CPA committee needs to.
First.
Oh, I can do this first. Thank you. And I may not. Just a summary of where our funds are at now. The figures as of March 31st, which are the most current. We have our 3 set-asides, the open space, which is recreation as well, the historic set-aside and the housing set-aside. Right now, the only one of those that has funds in it right now is the housing, which is $208,000. We try to keep a fund reserve of $500,000. And then the undesignated, meaning it could be for any of those 3 categories, the open space recreation, the historic or housing. The balance right now is $1,357,000 for a subtotal of $2,065,000. We do also have $1,004,000 that have already been awarded for projects that have not been spent as well. So the total CPA fund is $3,005,000, but what we have available is the $2,065,000 in various forms. So we need to, as a CPA committee, anticipate what our receipts will be for the following year. We know pretty clearly that the town will be around $300,000 from the 3% surcharge on the real estate taxes. How much the state does, it could be 100%, it could be 50%. We can't know that until it happens, but we've estimated that 10% would be $50,000 to put in the open space, the historic, and the housing. And the rest of the receipts will all go into the undesignated. So that is what Article 12 does, is allow the $50,000 to be put in each of those set-asides. So Article 13, we do put time limits on the projects usually that are awarded at town meeting, just so that they don't go on forever. And there's 2 that were coming due that have asked for an additional repair. The clock repair at the First Congregational Church got held up because they discovered the steeple needed to be fixed. And that should be done shortly. And the clock is being worked on. It just isn't going to be put back into the clock tower until the steeple is fixed, because that would be in the way of the steeple repair. So they've asked for a 1-year extension. And then the Goodwin Memorial Study, as I understand it, is just about, if it hasn't already been put out for bid. So they've also asked for a 1-year extension. So we certainly expect those both to be done within the year. Now, the next article is a clawback article. When people ask for a certain amount of money for the CPA funds, and then when their project is done, they may have funds left over, and they can't automatically be put back into the CPA fund until it's voted on at town meeting. The Gnotic mural was restored at the library, and there's $40 left in the budget for that, or the amounts awarded for that. And then the North Hadley Cemetery stones were quite a few of those stones were cleaned and repaired and straightened out. And they actually have $29,550 left over from that project. That goes back to the historic, because that's where it came from. The $40 rather came from the undesignated general. So that's where that goes back. Article 15. This is the sampler, and we have Alan Weinberg here to speak with that. So I'll let him change places with me. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Al Weinberg. Today I'm representing the Hadley Historical Society. We have in our collection 10 vintage antique needlepoint samplers that date back to 1795. Most of them are over 200 years old. They were done by young women as early as the age of 7, all either from Hadley or with family connections to Hadley. And the samplers, the one that's on the board is this one, which is in fairly good condition. However, it still needs to be restored as the others. That they need to be cleaned. Some of them have been folded for 100 years in a drawer, and they need to be cleaned, the creases removed. They need to be mounted on acid-free mounting and properly framed. This frame is not an archival frame, doesn't have the proper glass. It's not, needs spacers to protect the material. So we had a conservation assessment, a condition assessment of all the samplers done, the work and a proposal for treatment with a cost estimate. And so we were asking for $18,000 to do most of the work. We'll contribute $1,000 in the Historical Society. And hopefully we'll be able to restore all of these lovely samplers and be able to display them more frequently.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Is there anyone on Zoom from the Friends Like Warner? If not, I can certainly talk about
I
it.
didn't see anyone.
Okay. The next one is for $20,700 from the CPA fund, with the Friends of Lake Warner putting in another 7,000 or so. And that's to do a study on the water at Lake Warner. It's become increasingly hard to canoe and kayak through it because of the algae growth. And the algae growth impacts the oxygen levels and impacts the health of the fish, which impacts fishing and other recreation. And they say it's nutrient loss, excess algal growth, organic enrichment, low dissolved oxygen, turbidity, and noxious aquatic plants. And it also has been placed on the impaired water bodies for excess E. coli bacteria in 4 different years in the last 20 years as well. So they want to have a professional come in and do a study and testing and determine what the main issues are, and then also how best to treat it, so that when their next phase is, they'll know from a professional, standpoint what they should be putting in the river to treat it and improve the recreation for Lake Warner. So that's what the Friends of Lake Warner are asking for. Any questions on that? All right. The next one, we have Diana West from the Historical Commission.
Thank you, Mary. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Diana West. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am the current chairperson of the Hadley Historical Commission. So the Hadley Historical Commission has been working on 3 projects that we are reaching the final stages of completion. 4 signs that include historical information and photos, updating and reprinting the West Street walking tour, and an audio driving tour. These projects focus on preservation of the town's historic resources, namely its historic buildings, structures, and locations that are recognized by the Historical Commission as significant to the history of the town. These 3 projects target Hadley's 4 listings on the National Register of Historic Places, which are also listed on the State Register of Historic Places. This includes Hockanum Village, the Hadley Center Historic District, which includes the West Street Common, the North Hadley Historic District, and the Porter Phelps Huntington House Museum and its 40 acres skirts district. These 3 projects will identify the town's tangible historical resources and describe their significance, thus encouraging and supporting the preservation of these resources for now and well into the future. Education of the population as to the location and significance of these resources is key to their preservation. We submitted a CPA application for $15,000 to complete these projects. The CPA committee approved our request and recommended for the full town meeting vote, as seen on the article here. To provide some more background, we want to erect 4 signs with historical information. As mentioned, these will be in Hockanum, the center of town, the Common, and in North Hadley. We had a study done by Berkshire Design Group out of Northampton, who made the recommendation of placing the signs on public property at the Hockenham Schoolhouse, the Goodwin Memorial Building, by the bike path on the Common, and near where Mount Warner Road and River Drive meet. The DPW recommended we move the one in front of the Goodwin Memorial Building more to the south, away from a young tree. These locations have been identified as spots that you can safely pull off the road and park to view the signs. A study done by Fossil Industries out of Deer Park, New York, suggested 24 inches by 36-inch vertical signs on 8-foot posts, 6 feet of which are above the ground. This provides better visibility, better weathering, and they'll be double-sided to allow for bilingual English and Spanish information. Currently, we aren't really a walking community, so we want to be able to entice people who are driving to stop, park, and read the signs, hence their size and height. This will in turn generate more revenue in the town of Hadley, as they will spend more time here, hopefully visiting restaurants, small businesses, and cultural institutions. As you can see, possibly on one of the slides, it mentions that the planning board approved the signs and locations at their December 5th meeting, and the select board approved the signs at their April 12th meeting. We have been in touch with the building commissioner's office, and they will help us with the application process once we are ready to erect the signs. And when it is time to finally put them in the ground, we will work with the DPW to finalize the locations. Walking tour. Thank you, Jennifer. We have our slide ready to go. The West Street Walking Tour was originally written and published by the 1987 Hadley Historical Commission. The 2012 Historical Commission, in conjunction with Hadley's 350th Committee, updated and reprinted the tour in 2012. The new version will include more historical information and more photos. We used our $300 FY22 budget to pay for the cover design, as seen on the slide here. This project's goal is to document an ever-changing history of the town of Hadley and to foster a deeper value and connection to place for West Street residents, Hadley residents, and Hadley visitors. The continuous editing of this document to update what has changed on the town common and to update previous entries with more details and more accuracy helps our town's history to live on. And our third project is the audio driving tour. It has the most expansive history of Hadley and allows a listener to take a drive from Hockenham north on Route 47 into the center of town, over to West Street, and then north on Route 47 into North Hadley. The goal of this project, like the others, is to establish value, meaning, and connection to place for Hadley residents and Hadley visitors alike. We anticipate that of these 3 projects, this one will do the most to attract outside visitation of Hadley and therefore out-of-town dollars spent on local businesses. Extensive research and time has been dedicated to making sure this project represents the townspeople of Hadley, past and present, including accurate and respectful representation of the Native peoples who lived and continue to live here in the Connecticut River Valley. The Hadley Historical Commission believes that historic preservation starts with education. These 3 projects provide a good overview of Hadley's history from pre-European colonization to today. They highlight Hadley's historic landscape as well as her historic buildings. Excuse me. And my pages are out of order. Excuse me one second. And this highlights many of Hadley's very important aspects, such as our open field farming and our historic resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes. If this article passes, how long do you think it will take before everything is in place as you would like it to be?
So we requested 2 years. We are, as far as I know, Fossil Graphics is ready to print the signs as soon as we give the go-ahead. We had been offered a volunteer label to install the signs. We're not sure if that offer still stands. So then we need to determine that step. We did include possible installation costs in the request, but we might not need to use them. So we're hoping to have those up within the next year. And the audio tour is ready to be recorded. We just need to find the people who are willing to do that. We have also had volunteers who have offered, just finding it within their schedule to do that labor for us. And the walking tour is also, we do have a working draft, and we are putting in images now and finalizing the copy for that.
Diana, we can record it for free.
Thank you, Alex.
There you go.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
Any other gifts? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next article is for Russell School, and Carolyn Brennan is going to speak on that one.
Okay, so this is a request from the select board for $40,000 to engage a firm to undertake a feasibility study for the Russell School. The scope of work will include a comprehensive review and examination of existing reports and studies related to the building, coordination with the town administrator and select board, as well as community members, neighbors, and advocacy groups to ensure robust public engagement, draft a comprehensive feasibility study that frames the decision-making process for the town and defines the case for the following 4 outcomes. Public project, this is a public project. The building will be funded by public sources with a public end use, or a public-private partnership. The building will be funded by both public and private sources with both public and private end users. Eligibility for historic and other tax credits will be reviewed. Or a private project, the building will be offered for sale, long-term lease to the private market with potential deed restrictions. Or demolition, although this consultant who wrote the scope does not support demolition of historic buildings. A review of the process, procedure, and cost for such action will be included in the report. For options A, B, and C, the analysis will include building stabilization and reuse plans. The consultant does not support stabilization of the building without a plan for its long-term reuse. The feasibility study will also include the following: pre-development, stabilization, construction, and operating budget estimates, funding source identification, including but not limited to state and federal grants and historic tax credits, in conjunction with the town administrator and pursuant to applicable procurement laws. The architect or consultant will support the identification of the appropriate subcontractors, including but not limited to architectural and engineering services, and will assist in project advocacy with local, state, and federal officials, partners.
Are there any questions? Courtney?
Could you just clarify for everybody why the feasibility study is happening? Because people may remember that it also happened in 2019.
This is a different scope of work. This is actually reuse, combining looking at all options of private and public, as well as cost estimates. So it's all together.
Thank you.
Cost estimates to stabilize or cost estimates to do what?
Do you want me? I can read it again. The
Yeah,
scope.
let's do
A comprehensive review and examination of existing reports and studies related to the building, coordination with the town administrator, select board, as well as community members, neighbors, and advocacy groups to ensure robust public engagement. Draft a comprehensive feasibility study that frames the decision-making process for the town and defines the case for the following 4 outcomes. Of those 4 outcomes, it will include pre-development, stabilization, construction, and operating budget estimates, and funding source identification, including but not limited to state and federal grants and historic tax credits.
So for all of the options, there will be an economic or a monetary component, what it would cost if you wanted to go one way or a different way.
Yes, Courtney?
Question for Mary. Didn't 2 people abstain at the meeting to recommend it?
Yes, they did.
Okay, so I think we have to change that one, right?
Oh, no, one person abstained. One person abstained for the Russell School. 2 abstained for whether or not to vote on the 1.236.
Got it. Thank you.
No, but thank you. But it is 501 on the study, not 510. Yeah.
So that can be adjusted in advance of the.
Yeah. Thank you, Courtney.
Anything else? Yes.
What is the timeline for getting the feasibility study done?
Well, once it's going to, it will be as soon as we get the all the paperwork together for procurement, but it's not the first in line right now of other procurement projects. So it would be, we can't do anything until after July 1st. Even if that's depending on that it gets approved at town meeting, but there are probably 3 or 4 projects that are ahead of this.
Carolyn, would it be fair to say that the goal is to try to have the feasibility study completed before fall town meeting?
Yes. That's what you're asking.
Is this going out to bid or?
Yes, has to.
Okay, so when we fall town meeting, because aren't you allowed 30 to 90 days for the procurement, there's a bidding process, and then it has to come back to the
Jennifer,
board?
you want to,
So with the project that's $40,000, to go out to bid for that. Excuse me, there's a 2-week posting requirement. It has to go into DCAM. All of those things have 2 weeks typically on it, but the good procurement policy is to do at least 30 days. Yeah.
30 days, and then the bids are accepted.
The bids are accepted, the select board will review them and make a decision on who they award the bid to.
So we're looking at like another month per chance.
it is from this point, not until it gets approved at town meeting, funding's not authorized till July 1st.
And so then,
It's August, July, and August, and town meeting is.
usually at the end of October, but the select board hasn't set their special town meeting date yet. But typically,
As the will the select board make a subcommittee to review in detail each submittal? Or-
It depends on how many submittals we get.
Well, you do an RFP on your, there's already one on what the scope of the work is, and that usually that's your RFP. So whatever they give to us, has to fall within
Correct,
that scope of work.
correct.
for this, there probably. For this, there's that we know what we're doing with the feasibility study. So. I think it'll be fairly easy also with such a low amount. There's not typically. I mean, select board can at their pleasure, but it's not typically a committee is not usually put together to review $40,000 procurement.
So I think and I don't mean to speak for you, but I think what I heard Mr. Qualic asking is, let's assume that there are multiple respondents to the proposal. If there are 3 of them, how are we going to go about deciding which consultant to choose? And I think that has yet to be
And
determined.
because of the bid amount,
Mhm.
you're looking at the lowest, most qualified bidder. So it's not the same as if for the OPM for this building where we interviewed people.
Right, with unique qualifications. apply.
Right, it's not gonna be that for this dollar amount.
Mhm.
That's not in the threshold. So it's not something that typically would be done for such a low amount. That's why you write your specs to make sure that you get the qualifications of people that you want to apply. And that's why you're trying to be stringent in your procurement docs
Right.
and make sure
But
they have the
that is up
qualifications.
just for you. I think you guys should discuss that, whether, how you want to address the RFP.
Yeah. Writing the statement of work for this study and for the outcome you want is very important.
Mhm.
For this
It's always
study.
true.
Agreed.
Pardon?
It's always true.
Correct. I mean, just to say, well, it's better. Is not-
That's not what it is. And
That's
just,
not what I said.
if I can give you some level of confidence, this isn't the first feasibility I've done working in other communities and worked on several projects. So we will absolutely make sure we follow the right process and provide the select board with the appropriate information.
One more thing too, if the next stage involves the CPA, then it needs to be, a CPA application has to be put in early enough for the CPA to go over it as well. At this point, we're asking for them by August 15th, so it is a time,
See, that's kind
that
of
time.
self-defeating, right there.
Well, our
It's-
hands are kind of tied, Mr. Qualic, when you want to do the feasibility study and the money's not available until July 1st.
Mhm.
So we will try to move on it as quickly as possible.
Is there any way we could send it out and not award it
No, you
until
can't.
July?
We're not
1st?
allowed to send that with the money being authorized at town meeting. And I just want to clarify that we don't want to do this as a rushed
Right,
thing.
I agreed.
We want to take time. We want to be thoughtful in this. So yes, our intent absolutely is to be done so that the town would have some results provided to them, so that they could make a thoughtful and well-informed decision. But you just don't know. And I can just tell you just from the bid procedures we've been doing lately in every community is struggling with getting bid documents back in time and interested bidders. This is a little different. There's a lot, there's,
It said 2 years.
so that's 2 years to spend the money.
Spend the money to get the study done.
It will absolutely be done within 2 years. I can't say it's gonna be done. I just don't want to lead anyone astray that I'm guaranteeing that this study is gonna get done in time for town meeting. That would not be wise of me to say that.
That's my point, you know, if we just heard CPA say we gotta have it by August. And it's gonna take 60 days to get the process, we put
There's,
out the bid, bring it back.
But I am comfortable, again, if we had an earthquake, I can't tell you the building, something's not gonna happen to the building. But based on the time spent with this group as well as our building inspector, if we can't make it to the fall town meeting, we'll certainly be ready for the annual town meeting of next year.
And given the condition of the building and the amount of work that needs to be done, the attic floor that's getting wet from the leaky roof at the moment would most likely be replaced anyway. If that is your concern in terms of stabilizing and stopping the leakage.
Stabilizing at all, just concerned with the process.
Well, we will do it as quickly as we can. That's all we can say.
and we do,
understand it, it's that sometimes, like she just said, the process does not allow for the timetable,
Mary?
I was gonna say that we put the 2 years on there just so if the funds aren't being spent over a time span, they're no longer tied up. So after the 2 years, we check with people to see if it is actively being worked on, or if they need some more time, or if it's just sort of no longer getting done. So the funds can come back into the available CPA fund to go for other projects. So, but that is an indication that we think it'll take 2 years. We just put that on there. And our first CPA meeting, I forget, it's like this, might be right after Labor Day. So if it was a little bit later than August 15th, as long as we can get it to people before the first meeting to get a chance to read it. But it's just helpful to have a week or two for the committee to be able to go through and think about
Right.
questions they have and
Right.
investigate anything. So there's a little bit of time, wiggle room on the time. Jennifer, is there anything else on Russell School?
Is there any questions?
Any other
from
questions? Anything in
Alex?
the audience?
Does anybody-
Alex?
No one.
Okay,
Do you mind going back to the first slide that I had that showed all the breakdown of the prices, the funds?
There you go.
I just wanted to say, if everything we've talked about passes at town meeting, and that's, obviously town meeting is who decides how this money is spent. We have the 50,000 set aside, we have the returns of the historic and undesignated, the 29,590. These these 4 projects would total 92,500. So the final column is what the balances would be in the CPA fund if everything passed, which is open space 30,500, historic 6,500, housing 258,000 or 500,000 reserve, and then $1.2 million that could be used for any of those 3 categories. Just to sum it up.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but earlier you gave the select board a quick view of the history of CPA and how long it had taken us to come to have this amount of money.
Sure.
I think that would be very useful for the audience at town meeting.
Okay.
And probably Jennifer can work on a slide with that.
Yep, it goes
Yeah.
to me, Mary. I'm happy to put them together.
I will. We've had CPA for 19 years.
That's marvelous.
And in that 19 years, up through like January of this year, we have taken in 7.1 million, with an average, and that includes an average 69% match from the state. So Hadley has had almost $3 million come in from the state for Hadley to decide how it wants to spend that money on within those designated categories. We've done 1,400 acres of conserved farmland. All 5 cemetery stones have been done. The Lake Warmer Dam was repaired. Hopkins Fields phase one, we're done, and phase two is soon to be done. The Turka Park, again, a phase of that, a couple phases of that, and then the final one is being worked on. Golden Court has had quite a few $100,000 put into it, and then lots of historical buildings and objects. So
Thank you.
that's, but that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Transfer to stabilization.
That is Amy.
Amy, you're back again.
Amy's favorite article.
It is, it is. I think it is.
It is.
It's always important. Stabilize, stabilize.
So some people may remember, I hear this often, that we used to put the meals tax into stabilization. Now the meals tax goes into our general fund. So our stabilization account has $1,000 in it. So capital stabilization, thank you, has $1,000 in it. So we really want to start building that back up again. We're looking at projects down the road, some bigger projects. Some of them being some things with the schools, maybe a ladder truck, things like that nature. We do see things coming down the road. Right now, how we've been working with our capital is we've been borrowing some of the capital money out of our right out of the levy. So we have been borrowing. We would like to try to build this up so that way we will have money to use down the road. So we want to, this is just a start, but hopefully we come back every year with a little bit. That's all I have on that. Any questions?
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Article 20, the employee compensated time, as the article describes. This allows the town to begin an account to fund unused vacation and sick leave established under their contract or the town's personnel policy when they leave their employment with the town. So presently, if in any given department, if someone goes to another job or retires, all of the sick time and vacation time is taken out of that budget, and that typically is not budgeted for. So this will keep it a steady flow, be more fluid and be more predictable so that we could build up that account to take care of those situations.
Is this intended to be an annual contribution, if you will?
I think so.
That won't even touch if you have 4 or 5 people.
Right.
Nope.
Retiring
Got to start somewhere, right?
out of their working budget is what it usually comes out of.
Courtney?
Is there a limit to how much vacation can be carried over year by year?
There is. You can say it out loud. I just don't remember. You don't have to listen.
You can carry over half
Half of what?
your vacation.
From year to year.
So if you have 4 weeks vacation, you can carry over 2. If you have 5 days, you can carry over 2.5 days.
Calendar or fiscal?
We'll have to talk to you about that tomorrow.
Oh.
Oh, is that a question from you or a question from the public?
I am the public.
Right now, you're. Tomorrow, you should call HR and have a conversation.
I'm gonna look.
But that, but Courtney, thank you. I'll make sure that's available at town meeting. That's why this is helpful. Okay.
All right. Assessor's tax deferral interest.
Is Dan on?
I believe so.
Can we get him? Can we see him?
Hear 'em.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe we can't see him. Sometimes he
Yeah, we
doesn't.
can see him.
he's not gonna.
Okay.
Also, Jennifer, if you had it,
Yeah, that's really terrible.
if you had, and which I'm very honored you have me thing, but. That's okay.
Dan, can you hear us?
Yep.
There he is.
There he is.
Thanks, Dan. Dan is our assessor.
Clause 41A is a property tax deferral program for income eligible seniors 65 years of age or older for their primary residence. The entire tax amount each year can be deferred up to a total of 50% of the assessed value of the property. We currently have one senior in Hadley who takes advantage of this deferral. At the November 14, 2020 special town meeting, it was voted to reduce the interest rate charged on Clause 41A tax deferrals from 8% to 4%. The assessors proposed doing this because interest rates had fallen to record low levels. In the last year, interest rates have climbed back up, and the assessors feel that we should go back to the state level of 8% simple interest on tax deferrals under Clause 41A. If approved, this rate increase will not take effect until fiscal year 2024, which starts July 1, 2023.
Why would somebody, just for the general public, why would somebody use a tax deferral?
Tax deferrals are basically, you would have to be 65 years of age or older and have limited income. So it's a case of where people are choosing between paying their taxes or paying for prescriptions or paying for food or heat. This is an easy way where they don't have to do a whole lot of work in setting up a reverse mortgage or taking a mortgage out on their property. It's covered similar as a mortgage. When the property gets sold, they would have to pay the taxes back. But
So the town puts a lien on the property for the amount.
Right, they sign an agreement that a lien will be placed on the property and they will pay 8% simple interest on any amount that is deferred in the taxes.
In
So
Hadley,
it's-
there are quite a few seniors who have lived here all of their lives and their incomes are not huge. And this is a real asset for them if they choose to take it. Because it's a cash flow issue.
Right.
They're using their equity to pay their taxes, basically.
Questions?
Any questions? Okay,
Thanks, Dan.
zoning bylaws. Mr. Maximowski. Oh, okay, both of you, but you're here.
You want me to take it, Jim, or do you? Lately, my last 2 years, food trucks and food carts, et cetera, have become rather common in different areas. And currently, under the zoning bylaw, a food truck in Hadley is not permitted. And this would allow food trucks to be permitted by the Board of Selectmen under the food truck license or food truck regulation in the various zones. It will be prohibited in the residential zone, but in all other zones, it will be an allowed use by the Board of Selectmen under certain criteria. That's basically what this does.
Are there any questions?
So not in residential areas?
In pure residential areas, it'll be a prohibited use, and the only pure residential areas in the town of Hadley are up in the Rocky Hill area, Rocky Hill Road area, Meadowbrook Drive, and a few others. Almost the rest of the town, and where you live, it's ag residential. Okay.
Yeah, my thought was like asparagus festival, and I was like, well, it's the commons.
But that's ag res down there.
Yeah.
The town common is a combination of business and ag residential.
That might be a good thing to note, though, like what areas are pure residential in town.
Somebody, if we had a map that showed that.
The zoning enforcement officer, the building inspector has that zoning map.
You want it for town meeting?
I think it would be helpful to have
Oh.
it for
At
town
town meeting.
meeting, just like
Yeah,
a
just
little
a map.
map,
Okay.
so that if anyone's curious or
Okay.
concerned.
If that is right on the planning board website,
Perfect. I'll go grab it there.
okay.
Any other comments or questions?
No.
Anybody in the audience, Alex? Mr. Dryer, have you anything to add?
Nope. Jim covered everything.
You're muted.
No, he's not.
Well. his
He's not,
microphone's
we're not
working.
hearing him.
Jim covered everything.
Still nothing, Bill.
Well, I'm not muted.
This is me. Y'all are seeing my screen
Maybe we
right
can
now.
read your lips, Bill.
So that's my screen showing that I'm muted.
I'm good at lip reading. Go ahead.
Can we see the closed captioning on his end?
All my patients are on ventilators. I can read your lips.
Just
No problem.
That happened
Keep
in
dragging.
a while.
Try again, Bill.
there we go.
Technical difficulties.
Okay, we got you, Bill.
No, don't go.
This better be good, Bill.
He's gonna say he had nothing to add.
Now he's muted.
I think it's on here then. Oh, completely.
Okay, Bill, sign language.
It's going to the porch.
Coming back.
I'll try once more.
Yay!
No, I have nothing to add to what Jim said.
Well, thank you for the effort. All right. Anything else, Carolyn?
Just the ADA, if anyone needs accommodations, if they can let us know by Monday, that would be very helpful.
Was there
They can-
Article 24? We,
Oh, did I miss? Oh, no, this is-
There's one more article.
one more article there, Carolyn.
That is not.
Wait,
No, we took it off.
No,
Yeah, it's been.
That's been removed.
no, it
There
wasn't.
better be one more article,
Yeah, zoning bylaw amendment.
because you need to define food trucks under the zoning bylaw.
Oh, right, yeah. Article 24 or 23, whatever it is.
Whatever it was, there should be one more article defining a
Yeah.
food truck.
Might have left it off just for sport.
Your battery is running low.
I have it on mine. It says it on the town thing.
But you're looking for, what are you looking for, Jimmy?
The next the first zoning article defines, lets you know which zone food trucks are permitted in.
Yeah,
The next article amends section 1B to define what a food truck is.
Jim, I had that all as one article.
article, that's.
You did put it in all as one
Yeah.
article?
All as one article.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. On the one that I saw originally was all two different articles. So Article 20, it also defines what a food truck is.
Yes.
Yeah, the goal was to have.
Just, yeah. So the zoning bylaw amendment is off.
No, the zoning bylaw amendment is on, but there's two parts to it.
Okay.
One is to tell you which zone a food truck is permitted in.
The second paragraph.
And the second part of the article is to define what a food truck is, because the food truck is. Whoa, what's a food truck? This defines it in very specific, not just a food truck, could be a food cart, could be a beverage cart, and on and on and on. It doesn't have to just necessarily be something that, like a pickup truck that has the
Inside.
that drives down a road. It could be a lot of other things that's portable. And so we try to define it so that it's all inclusive.
So like people who pull trailers up and do
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Taking it from different towns, like in one town, they defined a food truck as something that's registered. Well, that means if I put a food truck on my trailer and it's not registered and bring it to a place that's not, it's not a food truck.
Yeah.
So, and it's extremely, it became amazing how complex.
Do you want to read it?
Oh,
Now,
I'm sorry.
So the people.
Defines a food truck. A food truck shall be defined as a readily movable trailer, cart, or motorized wheeled vehicle designed and equipped to cook or prepare or serve food, and shall include any food truck, food cart, canteen truck, catering truck, breakfast truck, lunch wagon, beverage truck, beverage cart, or any other food vehicle or setup that is mobile.
Now, is this, it's two parts to this, but it's voted as one, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So actually, there are three parts to. One is to amend the zoning matrix, the table of uses by adding food trucks. That's part one, which is the window we're looking at now. Part two is to add footnote 6.
Oh,
Right there.
And then part three is to amend the definition section 1B. So we're using one article to amend section 3 and section 1B,
Okay.
okay.
but they're all related to the same issue, so it's appropriate to combine them.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's the slide is a little off because it doesn't show them all on one panel.
Because they were counted.
Then perhaps we should have one on each
Maybe.
panel.
And I would have been able to put my food truck up here.
She's not doing,
Is there anything else, Carolyn?
there is not.
Does anyone on the board have anything else?
No.
No.
See you next week at 7 o'clock.
Does anyone in the audience have anything else? All right. Then I declare this forum closed.
Make a mo-
Oh,
someone
you
needs-
got
May I have-
something.
Question, Brian?
Yes, hi there. Good evening. I've been trying to get in on the Zoom and I was not allowed to enter until Article 21, I think. And I came to provide any sort of support for Article, I believe it's 15 for the Lake Warner CPA funds. I didn't know if there were any questions. I'd be happy to answer them now if it's possible.
We didn't have any questions. Mary was here and did a very good job for you.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Sorry
that was
about that,
it.
Brian.
Sorry about the technical. We're still learning about these remote meetings. All right, may I
No
have a motion? to
problem.
adjourn?
Thank you for taking my question.
Wait,
All right,
hold on, one
Good night.
more.
one more question.
Hold on.
Yeah. Michelle,
Michelle Morris Friedman, I too spent over an hour trying to get into the meeting, so this next meeting, this should maybe be fixed. It would be helpful.
thank you. We will work on what happened there.
Sorry, Michelle.
Motion to adjourn, please.
So second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for coming. See-